Welcome to Two Babies in a Business, a podcast where I get to talk to amazing women doing amazing things, and we all get to share our experiences of being a mom and balancing the things we love with the little people that we love too. And today I get to talk to a client who has become a fast friend. We were in a group chat this morning where we were talking about vibing on the same frequencies, and I think Krystal and I definitely do that. So, Krystal, welcome to Two Babies in a Business. Why don't you tell the listeners about yourself? You have a great story.
Thanks, Christina. I'm excited to be here. I'm Krystal Churcher. I am a mom of two little guys that aren't so little anymore, 7 and 10. I am, a private business owner. I have become an advocate, bit of a political voice in the last 2 years. I am also a wife and have an amazing husband that supports me in all of my adventures and things I like to take on. And yeah, I'm an educator. I started out as an educator with a special education background. So yeah, a little bit of everything. I'm all over the place.
Nice. We share in common the age group. Obviously, my boys are 7 too. I feel like it's a very interesting age to be a mom. To your point, like, right, you want to introduce them as little guys, but I feel like they let us know every day that they are not.
Absolutely. Yep.
How's that like transition been for you? I know for me it has been quite a transition.
Yeah. It's interesting. We're on the end of our second week of spring break at my house. And yeah, I mean, I love to like think of myself as super patient. I work with kids, I like work with parents. But when this like 2 weeks is way too long. I love my kids, but I'm so like counting the hours down to having them go somewhere else. My kids are at like I find the 3 year gap has been such an interesting thing because there's like very few years where they've been close enough in age that they play well together and they enjoy each other's company. Because they're always like so in such different ages. Like right now, my daughter's 10, turning 11. So she thinks she's like an adult. And my son is just 7. So he doesn't get her world. He's
Yeah.
always in the way. He's embarrassing her. He's bothering her. Like there's just no crossing over right now of worlds. So I find it's a hard age in our house right now. But yeah, 7, I keep thinking of him as my 3 year old. Like I keep always describing him as being little, and yeah, he's not
It's
at
true.
all anymore.
Yeah, my boys just moved, like they shared a room for so long, and one is now moved into the basement, which I thought was like gonna be, at 15, he'd moved to the basement. So and for me, like they're fine. They think it's great, and I'm glad they have their own space. But like even the other night, like was reaching over like for like a monitor, right? Like that just like like habit of like checking and looking at them before bed. And I was like, oh my God, one is so far from me now. I feel like they don't realize what
I
they're doing
know.
to us.
I know. Hey.
True.
Yeah. Empty nest, right?
That kind of feels like it's like an empty upstairs nest.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like that too. They kind of go do their own thing, even in the house or when they're
Yeah.
into their own interests, and they're not eating you. And
Yeah.
I mean, I had my nephew is 3 and he came to visit a few weeks ago. And I like 3 is my favorite age. 2 and 3 are my favorite ages with working with kids. And I loved having him here, but watching my brother like run after him and everything is like life or death at that age because they have no perspective of like how fine a line they're walking sometimes. And I was thinking, I am just so grateful for the stage I'm at with my kids. I loved those stages, but to be able to go have a shower without worrying about someone dying in the house or, being able to like let them walk up the stairs on their own or, go to another room, I just had forgotten that level of dependency and how much work that was. So it's always a good refresher to have.
It's true. I feel like too, even because we're in the thick of spring break over here too, and even just the interest they have in some of the stuff I'm doing, whereas before it would, completely, they have no idea the mom sits at a computer all day or, for a long time I feel like they thought we just made websites or something like you build a website because that's what they knew. That was like their frame of reference. And even just this morning, as I was talking about big decisions and in the business owner side with Peter, they're asking really interesting questions. Like they're taking interest and obviously like listening in. But yeah,
Totally.
so awareness of, okay, mom is actually having, like, mom just doesn't like play on the computer all day.
Yeah. We were at a specialist appointment yesterday, my son and I, and we were talking to the nurse, and the news was on in the background, and she said something along the lines of, oh, they don't ever get it right with healthcare. They're always saying this, they're always saying that, and it's so hard in healthcare right now. And my son goes, oh, you should ask my mom about childcare. You have no idea how bad it is.
Your key messages are working.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a good transition point into all the advocacy you do. I mean, you have an incredible story as a business owner, but over the last few years, you transitioned into this world of advocacy, like you alluded to. So tell us a little bit about that. And then I guess where I'm curious at my core is I feel like women are often really passionate about certain things,
Mhm.
and you've been able to just empower yourself, be empowered by those around you, and step into this really incredible role. So, I mean, there's a lot to unpack there, but let's start with.
How much time do we have? Yeah, I mean, I never really saw myself as an advocate. I'm not really a public speaker, fairly shy and introverted, and kind of was pushed into this a little bit just with situation. I opened a private business, a private preschool and early learning center, because in the community we moved to, there was nothing that I felt really I would want my children to go to, or that would support my family in what I was looking for childcare and for like that early learning kind of component before school. And I was like, well, I'm just going to do it myself. Like, let's do this. And my husband has always been like behind me, supporting and renovating and painting and making it all actually come to reality. So, this has been very much like my business, my baby, like my gift, I felt like, to the community in Fort McMurray for so many years. When the $10 a day childcare program rolled out, I will say, like, I was fairly uneducated about the politics behind it. I really wasn't political. I voted, but I really had no investment in what I was voting for, who I was voting for, or any kind of understanding. I was really ignorant, I realize now. And I was just excited for the families, like excited for my staff to get wage top ups under this program, like excited for all of the positives. I didn't read the fine print. And I think that's where most of us feel like we are in this program now. And it was only because I was hoping to open another center and I wanted to leverage my investment in my center to finance this next center. And I was told that because I had signed into this affordable childcare program, they really couldn't pull any investment. There was not any value in my center at that time.
Wow.
And I was like horrified actually, because I had planned to sell it a few years before, just right before COVID. And I had it evaluated and I knew this number that it was worth at that time. And actually my numbers had grown and I expected it to be worth more. And I had invested so much over 10 years in this business. It really shook me and I was really angry. And that's where the advocacy kind of started, because I felt like here I was as an Albertan, as a Canadian, watching the news, listening to the radio, and seeing the celebration of, this is so wonderful for women, this program, this, affordable childcare, everybody wants it. All these associations I belonged to as an ECE, as an educator, were all like, yay, this is so great. This is so great. And I'm like, what are we missing here? Like, while this is wonderful for families, and I'm not arguing affordability and childcare, just the business portion of it, I felt like I was in like some bizarre world. And every time I brought it up, I felt like I was kind of like shamed, like, oh, you're a private business in this public space and you shouldn't be talking about profit. You shouldn't be making profit. Like, shame on you for capitalizing on children and all the things. And I really started to kind of uncover this narrative that's been in childcare, I think, for decades in Canada. Realized quickly, there was no unity of private operators in Alberta. We were seeing each other as competition. We weren't seeing each other as, allies in this same space and in the same purpose and intention. And, I've always come from a place of abundance with my center. So that's just always been my perspective. If someone wants to open a childcare center, I will welcome them in. I will show them what I've done. I'll show what works because I believe there's enough for everyone. And I think we can all like share and learn, from each other. So I really wanted to put that forward in the childcare space, in private operators. And I don't feel shame in owning a private childcare center. I feel very proud of myself, proud of the community in my center, of what I've offered for my staff and for the families and all the great things that I think we have done in our community through this center. So it didn't align with me that it was somehow horrible to have this business model and be in this space. And yeah, I think I've tried to I think the hardest thing for me was the political side. I really didn't know anything about it. And I showed up really angry, I think, for the first little bit because I felt like I had my business stolen from me. And then I felt like I was being told, like, pat on the head, like, be happy about this, be quiet. You're horrible for saying there's something wrong with this. And, there was 5 of us that kind of banded together, didn't know each other from all over the province that felt the same and have created this association together to bring a voice originally for private operators, but because there has been such cracks in this program and other things coming through, it's grown so much that we're now representing, all childcare models in the province and starting nationally now. So it's really grown. But I think like having a daughter too has really empowered me to keep going with this because I feel like I'm not a super feminist, like raw burning kind of personality, but I do feel that it's so important to model for my daughter, but also for my son to see how you support women and how you respect women and treat women and all people. And I think without them, I probably would have just folded my business and moved on to something else. But yeah, I felt like it's important. We built this as a family, and this was something I hope to either like sell my investment and bring into the family into some other form or pass on to them. They've both worked with me in the center. They've both been there since they were babies. And I just felt like it was so wrong the way things rolled out that if I didn't do something, nobody was going to do anything. So
yeah, it's amazing to just from the perspective of, I think there are so many of us female business owners that notice things. And because we don't feel like we understand things like politics or, I think for many years as a business owner was so hard on myself when it came to like the financial aspects, because it's like, oh, I'm an arts major. I never did math in university.
yeah.
And then all of a sudden you're like, no, wait a second. Like, I can do this. I know what I'm doing. And I think it's such a powerful example that you've been able to carve out time. But even in those times, because I know how busy you are and you get, even in those times where you have no time, you're still able to maintain and be this voice for so many people. I find it inspiring because, like I said, I have conversations with other friends that are business owners too. And I think there's a lot of like, I feel like the childcare industry, like like your son said, wait till you hear about that. But even just in small business and red tape and all of the things that we can get hung up on. And a lot of the time we just kind of keep our mouth shut, right? And okay, this is the way it is. And the fact that you've been able to not only be an example for your industry, but also just an example for women in business, I think is super cool.
Thank you. I have a hard time with the being the face of this all the time because I feel like it's always like my face is the nagging, like negative voice behind all of the issues of this program. And I think Peter and, you and your team have really helped me to like not take this personally because, as I put myself out there for this, I get people, not always happy with what I'm saying. And, I've had I've had pushback because my business is attached to this too. So like, it's something where it's been a very fine line of like becoming a voice, but also trying to make sure that my staff are protected and like, my family is protected in this. And I'm always amazed what people feel comfortable saying on the internet.
Right?
Yeah. But I think if you're sitting there and you're feeling like in your gut that something's not right, we can't, I think that's been one of my biggest things is I know I'm not always right. And I know that maybe I'm misinterpreting things or misunderstanding them, but if I'm feeling like that in my gut about something that is rolling through and impacting so many families and business owners and children, I'm sure there's other people, and I would love for someone to let's just have a dialogue around it and figure it out. Because I would love to be wrong. That I would love to hear that this is actually working, and maybe I just misunderstood the whole thing, but that doesn't seem to be our reality right now.
It's true. I think it's so interesting too around putting your face on something because there is this big, what is your brand, right? Like, who are you as a person? And I feel like moms, especially, we go through all the emotions of who we once were and who we are now and how that's changing and who we'll be in the future. And so you're right. Like, when we're passionate about something, when we build something like a business, we really do take it on as who we are. I think it's even for me when at the beginning of podcasts, like as I say, who are you? It's always really fascinating to me to hear how women introduce themselves. It's always very multifaceted. It always includes everything from their lives. Whereas, again, not to put boys on the spot because we love boys too, but there's this, I'm a business owner, I'm an entrepreneur, it's just more cut and dry. And I think we become just so more multifaceted.
Totally.
I think too with like, the comment around it's amazing what people say on the internet. To me, it is truly amazing. But like this is where I like really wish we could all lean into that narrative that is plastered everywhere now, right? Like women supporting women and lift each other up. And we also are really mean to each other sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
And I wish that there was a way that we could like wave the magic wand and do away with that stuff because again, for you and what you've built, it's like, okay, politics aside,
Yeah.
tearing everything down, even industry aside, it's like, woman to woman looking at you going, wow, built a business, 2 kids, doing the whole mom wife thing, now standing up and not only advocating for yourself, but an industry as a whole. And, going to multiple tables, having multiple discussions, putting yourself out there. It's like, I don't care if you like pineapple on your pizza or don't like pineapple on your pizza. It's
Yeah.
like you're kicking butt. And I feel like there's like, I don't know. I wish there was more of a responsibility for all women to just recognize that and go, wow, the amount on her plate is huge. And even if I can just leave a comment that maybe says, don't support your politics, but
Yeah.
way to balance the world,
You
I
know,
think we'll go a far way.
I think that we have to like as a society, I guess, start to take that defensiveness away from like having a conversation. Like I can have different opinions and different views than you. It doesn't mean I don't like you. It doesn't mean that we can't work together and, maybe we'll learn from each other's views. And my views and opinions are going to change. Like I look at where I was even like 2 years ago when this rolled out or whatever. And I'm not my views have changed, my perceptions have changed, and I think that as not just women supporting women but just supporting each other in we're in a state, I feel like maybe it's just because I've gone down this political wormhole in the last 2 years. I feel like we are at a state as Canadians that we need to really start to like take some responsibility and ownership for our country and our values and our money, I think, again. And however we're going to do that is probably going to look different from person to person. And I think that we need to start asking questions. Like, I guess that's always been my thing with this advocacy is that it's not necessarily about attacking like another association for their views or attacking, someone who doesn't believe that private operators should be in the space or anything. It should be about like, let's just talk about this. Let's ask questions. Like, let's figure this out. Because if we're hearing from even like 10 people who are saying there's a problem with this and it's not working, then we need to figure this out, because we need to make sure we get this right moving forward for all policy, I think, not just childcare. But I feel like a lot of times when you ask questions, you're suddenly labeled as not wanting this or against this. And, I'm very much not against affordable childcare. I think it's wonderful. Just because I'm speaking out against the issues with it doesn't mean I don't want the same things. So I think it's just this instant like defense attack whenever somebody says something that's different from what other people believe, right?
Yeah, it's true. I mean, I've kind of floated around in that political world for a long time. And there was a time where I thought, oh yeah, I'm going to run for politics one day. And this seems like a good path. And as you get deeper and deeper in there and you deal with the things that you've dealt with in terms of, that visceral kind of online narrative, but also it becomes so personal so quickly. And I do think, whether it's a personality type, whether it's being a woman, whether it's being whatever, like we internalize that stuff and we
Totally.
think about it. And again, about that personal brand and bringing things forward. It's like, especially when Peter and I were on the journey of becoming parents, I went, I don't think I want a family a part of that world.
Yeah.
And I think it's a shame because obviously I think we need more females on that political scene, but I do think that the way the Canadian dialogue around politics and in politics and amongst elected officials has gone, it almost just not only is like prohibitive, but like just so uninteresting as a
Yeah. I agree 100%. I can't even imagine. I have a lot of respect for people that are willing to take it on and do that. It's not for me. It's not something. This is good. I'm good on this in this space. I could not.
It's true. We have 7-year-olds to negotiate with. We
Yeah,
don't.
no, it's enough.
True.
It's enough negotiating in a day for me.
All right. So the one big question I've been asking this season is just around really kind of the same vein as what we've been talking about. We're coming off an interesting year, right? We've got this Taylor Swift female billionaire, Forbes list breaking all these records. We have the Barbie movie. We have all these really interesting examples that are pointing to kind of female empowerment, but potentially some gaps still too. So I'm wondering, what do you think about coming off this kind of year of pink? And
Yeah.
are they getting it right, or is there still some unrealistic expectations out there on us?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's been a good year. I think, I loved the Barbie movie, and, I love Taylor Swift as well. I have a 10-year-old, so those are big names in my house. I think there's gaps. I think that, no, I don't know. My husband sometimes will tell me like, I'll say something along the lines of like, it's so hard being a woman and all of these things. And he'll be quick to remind me that it's hard for him too. Like, I think,
Right.
we all have our things that make it hard and expectations. And I think for women, it's this like, I know this is how I feel as a mom. I feel like you go through phases as a mom. Like you start your identity as a mom, like you have your child, and that becomes who you are. Like all overnight, you're a mom, and this person is like your world.
Yeah.
And then as they grow up and they age into different things, you kind of lose that identity. And then I find I like for myself, I've gone through moments where I'm like, okay, well, who am I? Like, what's left of me? Because the person that I was when I had them is not the same person I am now. Then you're kind of rebuilding yourself. And I think that, I think we put so much on our plates as moms and as women. And I know it's my internal expectations. I don't know where those come from. But like that disappointment of feeling like I can't do it all sometimes and I don't want to ask for help. And, I don't know where I was going with this, but I feel like it's just we pile all this stuff on, like the housework, the working, the running the business, the doing all the things with the kids. And then you add something like a passion project in there. And then you're wondering why you're exhausted and burned out. And you have nothing left. And I know for myself, it's really been trying to find that balance and not pass on to my daughter that just being busy and crazy is a sign of success, and that you do need to take that moment and make sure you're not just taking it all on, like do it as a project together, or spread your things out so you can have that time on your own. Because I think I grew up in a space where that was seen as laziness, and if you had empty time you should fill it with something or be doing something. And I don't, yeah, I want to kind of break that cycle. That's something. So I don't know if that was relating to the Barbie movie and Taylor Swift, but I think that you look at those movies and that Taylor Swift, like what she's being seen as someone who does all of these things, right? And I think we need to just start to make sure we're all okay while we're doing all of those things.
It's true. I think that's a big one. I often talk about like my cup being full. And I think,
Mm-hmm.
there's like little things we do to fill our own cups. And sometimes that's exactly like closing the door and saying no.
Yeah.
And I think you're right, like cool year in terms of everything that we've seen and in terms of women and all the things, but also we do have this crazy expectation on ourselves, and wherever we got that from, whether it's Peter always tells me that this generation of women is not okay just because of the pressure I feel like we've seen from the past. And now we're all these kind of, I feel like we're all A-type. We're all
Oh,
this,
totally. Totally. Yeah.
everyone, even Karen that I work with, it's like, okay, our generation, we all have gut health issues too. So whatever stress that came from. But it's true, taking that minute to just pause and go, okay, how am I filling my cup? What am I saying no to? And
Yeah.
similar to you, I'd love to be able to instill on like the next generation of moms that like almost the warning label, like you're gonna
Mhm.
change and that's okay. Because I don't necessarily knew if I ever was okay with the fact that I felt different, right? And you do. And I think they warn you about so much when you
Yeah.
become a mom, but they don't warn you about that, like, hey, you're going to process a lot and like, don't worry, you're going to come out the other side and you'll be better for it. But like, it's going to feel a little crazy for a bit.
I was actually talking to my sister-in-law in BC this weekend. We were doing a podcast. She was my like guinea pig podcast
Okay.
person. And so her and my brother have a 3-year-old, but she's also expecting their second in the summer. And we were just talking about like motherhood and childcare and all of the things. And she, was saying how hard it is that, like she's got this 3-year-old and she's nervous about having this like baby with the 3-year-old, and how life is going to look, and where her time is going to go and everything. And, she's like, how did you do it? Like, how did you do it? Because our kids are the same age span. And like, it was so hard. And I think like looking back, because we lived in a rural community, we had no family. We actually had no friends. We didn't know anyone when we moved there. And there was no village. Like, there's always that saying, like, it takes a village to raise a kid. And I always felt so kind of like irritated when someone would say that to me, because I'd be like, okay, where is the village? Like, where do I sign up for this? Like, my family, my husband and I's family, unfortunately, we're not our village for our children. And I think that is the reality for a lot of women and families. And, you're kind of left alone in this isolation, and you don't have that support. You don't know where to turn. There's no, and I think if we could learn anything from this like women's movement is to really like reach out without judgment, and just support people where they're at, and women where they're at, be that village, whether it's online or, in, I don't know, in person, in a mom's group or something. Like I was joking with her that it would be great to have like a mom mentor when you have a baby,
Oh, yeah.
like
Yeah.
someone that you follow and shows you what to do, right?
I love that. Like they do those like baskets in Scandinavia or whatever,
Yeah,
right? And they like give you all the things you need, but like it also should come with like a calling card for call this mom in case of emergency.
exactly. Yeah.
Nice. Well, Krystal, thank you for sharing your story. I know you've been having video issues. So if you're watching on YouTube, don't worry. Krystal is still alive. She's
Oh,
there.
sorry. Is it freezing?
But thank you for sharing your story. And you have just recently launched a podcast too. So why don't you tell people where they can find you? If they enjoyed your story, they can hear more.
Sure. So this podcast is really around advocating for awareness in childcare, quality for childcare, and among other things, but very childcare based. And it's Voices for Care. So that's our podcast is Voices for Care. We'll be on YouTube and Spotify. Am I gone?
All the places.
All the places. I don't know. You're helping me with this. So
She'll be in all the places. She's on all the places.
yeah.
We'll throw a little link to you too in the promotion. But Krystal, thank you again. And thank you for really being inspirational. You do a lot. And I can't imagine all the things you say no to because you say yes to so many things. So thank you for all the advocacy you're doing for the childcare industry, but also for being an example to women like me too.
Thank you so much, Christina.
Thanks for joining me, Christina Pilarski, for another fantastic episode of Two Babies in a Business. I hope that you'll follow along with me on my journey as a mom on Instagram, Two Babies in a Business. And I hope that you'll sign up for our newsletter. You can find the link in the show notes or on my Instagram. And finally, if you're a mom with a story to share, I want to hear from you. Please reach out to me, and I'm looking forward to having a conversation with you.